So just by building these bridges between teams, it aims at reducing silos and helps people gaining additional skills and clarifies the ownership of the ownership process. It really depends actually on your team culture and how people are willing to contribute to the system, because like you just don't configure like a CI/CD tool and then just let it live its life. Like you have to maintain it as well.
Welcome back, listener, to another exciting episode. In this episode, we will discuss about the DevOps roadmap. With us, we have Thomas. He is from France and he currently moved to Kuala Lumpur. And he will be telling us about the details and how you can pursue your DevOps journey. He is working in this field for past 4 to 5 years. A warm welcome to Thomas. And bro, kindly introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, sure, man. So I started in 2019 in a ERP CRM company. So I was working on out-of-the-box projects, so all alone. So basically, I was working on the business analysis, the technical requirements, developments, and I was also deploying these solutions to beta phases. And so basically, since I was involved in the whole project lifecycle, I got interested more and more in the DevOps philosophy. I became some kind of the Swiss Army knife, and I got really a Swiss Army knife guy, in other experiences. And I also became really interested in solution architecture, generally speaking. So later on, I've been able, companies trust me to hold key responsibility in their team. So, for example, in my latest experience, I was the architect and owner of the whole deployment solution, which was performing hundreds and hundreds of deployments per week of various products in various environments. So the DevOps philosophy is and has always been my work philosophy, as it also allows me to express, my versatility as an engineer.
Yeah, that is, you have a great experience, because I know that if someone has experience in solution architect on the coding aspect as well, then you have experience on the cloud side as well.
Yeah.
So it is I would say a great combo to work on big applications and make scalable systems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that is great. The first question I have for you is, what is DevOps? For a beginner who does not know about it. So can you tell what is DevOps? What are the different things that are included in DevOps?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically DevOps is a philosophy, but we can also refer it as a set of practices and tools that will enforce this philosophy. So this philosophy is basically to build bridges between different teams in a tech department. So usually build bridges between the dev team and the ops team. So that's why it's called DevOps basically. So it helps it emphasizes team empowerment, cross-team communication and collaboration, and technology automation. So just by building these bridges between teams, it aims at reducing silos and helps people gaining additional skills and clarifies the ownership process of a service. So what's in DevOps basically? What's your question? So everything related to CI/CD. CI/CD for me is really the core of DevOps. Everything is around the CI/CD. DevOps is really about automating most of the project life cycle, basically to help reducing to help ensuring the quality of the project and maintaining different a set of different services and deploying it with less hassle.
Yeah, got it. So just to sum it up, DevOps, I would say, you can see in the name as well, dev means, dev team, development team, back end, front end guys. Ops is the operation team. So it is combining both of them. Thomas mentioned CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Previously, back in the years, there used to be people are using Linux servers, Windows server. So what they used to do is they used to first work on the project, and then they used to zip the code and then go to the Linux server, unzip it and execute it. But it takes a lot of headache, because you have to zip the code, deploy the code every time there are any even if like a small spelling change. So with DevOps team, like they have these guys build like different pipelines, so that when you merge your code and whenever you have like a new change in your code base, it automatically, it is not just the code is deployed, the code is like tested, and like there are a lot of stuff, like Thomas can go in details. So just to get an idea, this is all about it, like combining operations and the development team together. So with that, my next question is like, what are the different phases in the DevOps life cycle? Because it's like a whole life cycle, it is not just like one time thing that you do and like it ends. So there are like different phases, so can you elaborate that?
Yeah, so the DevOps lifecycle consists of 8 phases representing the processes, capabilities, and tools needed for development, and also like the operation side. So what you want to do, like if you have, for example, like a simple app, which can be something as simple as a web API. So you first like dev it, then you build it, and then you will test it or set that everything is working. Then you deploy it, and once it's deployed, maybe like you will also observe how it works. So collect logs, analyze these logs, and use like this output like to enhance basically your project. So maybe, for example, that your web API is not performing really well because you haven't implemented this specific pattern, which would help like see a web API working way better. So for example, like monitoring tools, collecting logs, it can help you a lot with that. And from there, like once it's deployed and you're collecting all these logs, like monitoring the state of your web API, you collect all these insights and you can re-inject it in your roadmap, in your development roadmap, basically to build like a better project and to trigger continuous improvement on this. Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. I was like, what are the different tools that are used on each step, like, and how they help in the process of this DevOps lifecycle?
Yeah. So as I said, like this with this like infinite sign that Huzaifa showed, like it's all about like most of these like are handled by the CI/CD. So there are like multiple CI/CD solutions, and this is really like the starting point. If you want to get used to like the DevOps philosophy and everything, like the first thing you should start with is CI/CD. So CI/CD key responsibilities, like basically CI/CD is like a set of automations, which ensures like the code quality. So you can ensure that the contributions to the projects don't introduce code smells, vulnerabilities, bad designs, which could lead to technical debt. So in the end, like you prevent like too much technical debt to happen. This is important when you're working with a team, and this is important when you're working alone as well, because when you're working alone, you can think of everything. So with that, you can also avoid functional regression by setting up unit tests, end-to-end testing, and so this way it also enforces team to be more responsible for the quality assessment of their own work. So thinking of that, by the way, like you can also implement something which is called code coverage. So you calculate like the coverage in terms of unit tests of the code. And so you see, so if someone contributes to the project, you see, okay, you added new code, but you haven't tested it with properly with unit tests. And so to keep like ensuring code quality, we have like these requirements. So yeah, and also like CI/CD provide a clean, isolated environment to build predictable artifacts in an automated and predictable way. So you don't want to build like your web API on your Mac, and like 10 days after, it's like your colleague which is building the web API on his Mac, maybe with like different environment variables and all this stuff, maybe with a different version of Node, which is not like properly described and noted like in the docs or in the CI/CD automation. So this is important. And in the end, you also want to ship these artifacts seamlessly with low effort to deploy your project to production.
Yeah, that is great. And can you name like few tools like that we specifically use, like for instance, like people are using Terraform, or like you can say cloud formation. Why these tools are important? And like for instance, for managing your code, we are using GitHub or GitLab. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so basically when you start a project, when you start an app, doesn't matter of the nature of it, like everything should start with Git. Okay, everything should start with version management tool. Okay, so use Git, use Subversion, use Mercurial. I don't know, but like most of the people use Git, and actually like the CI/CD solution I talked about, it will plug on it.
Okay.
So yeah, and for like your whole workflow to function like properly with like the best practices and best standards, you also have to define like Git flow. So this is important, but we can maybe get back to it later, so I can answer your original question. So for
Sure.
CI/CD, you can. Well, I like the GitLab stack. So GitLab CI/CD, like it's a great CI/CD tool. For example, if you're working in like a big team in a big company, you can also set up your own Jenkins instance. That's a nice like CI/CD tool.
Yeah.
Some people use a tool called Buildkite also.
Yeah.
It's nice. It has some nice features. Like it really depends actually on your team culture and how people are willing to contribute to that system, because like you just don't configure like a CI/CD tool and then just let it live its life. Like you have to maintain it as well. You have to enhance it, and sometimes like people from product or from QA, like in your company, they will come to see you and say, okay, like we want to change like the way we deploy our apps to production. We want to change the way we deploy our apps to the staging platform, the QA platform, and so on. So yeah, like it's a product. It's your own product that you will have to own and maintain.
Yeah.
And yeah, so GitLab CI/CD, Jenkins are a great start, to be honest, and GitHub Actions, of course, if you work
Yeah.
on GitHub.
Yeah, that is good, because like all there are like a lot of tools. Like
Mm,
if you do not know much about like DevOps, I would say like there are like thousands of tools,
yeah,
different tools for monitoring,
yeah.
logging, building our code. Like as Thomas mentioned about like Buildkite. What Buildkite does is like it builds the code and sends to the next stage, right?
Mm,
The next stage can be deploying the code, or again like there are some other process going on. So then Jenkins also has like different like plugins and different functionality that it can build your code. It can execute test cases and check like if the code is okay, then it will like push the code to the
mm.
deployment server, and then your code is deployed. So there are like numerous softwares like and tools in this DevOps journey. Like we will talk about all of them in detail, like in the upcoming questions. So
So yeah, maybe to add one last thing is that the CI/CD tool you choose is really important, and it should have the features that fit to your like daily workflow and also to the way you want to deploy things, basically. So yeah, you should pay attention to that and have that in mind, like right before, because some CI/CD tools have some features, some CI/CD tool enable you to have a certain workflow, and some don't.
yeah,
So be aware of that. Like
I
decide your workflow before choosing the CI/CD
yeah, I
solution.
also think like you also have to see your product as well, analyze your product, analyze
Mm,
your team.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
for
yeah. For the
instance,
team, yeah.
I work in like a big company. There are like 1,000 employees. I see their setup, right? I said, this is so cool. They have all these tools, everything. And
Mm,
then I shift my job. I am working in another company. There are like 20 people, and I am like, I will implement the same DevOps
mm,
environment in that 1,000 people company is using.
yeah,
In a 20 people company, it will be a chaos, because it
mm,
requires like a big team to manage
yeah,
it as well. So you have to, whatever the environment is, it should be based on your product, your team capacity. If your team capacity is small, then you should have a simple workflow rather than having a complex
mm,
workflow.
yeah, yeah.
So, Thomas, like, what are some of the benefits of implementing the DevOps in your development lifecycle?
Yeah, so as I said before, like DevOps practices can help enhancing the code quality and lower the efforts when it comes to deployment and monitoring. So because you automate everything from like unit tests, code coverage, and all, like you ensure you maintain this code quality in your project, like independently of who is contributing to it. So by doing that, you also like define what is important in the tech department, which are called like technical golden paths. So, for example, is okay, you add this feature. Okay, you have to test it, because otherwise, the CI/CD tool will raise an alert and won't let you merge it to the main branch. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so this is important. So all these automation, they helped basically enforcing like industry grade good practices and standards, which eventually help you up scaling like in the future as well.
Yeah, that is good. And as a DevOps engineer, like what are the main cloud providers that you should learn, or in the start, like if you name like two, three of them?
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so AWS, Azure, GCP are the three main ones, but they share like most of the markets. So AWS is a great choice because they easily provide vouchers. So it's great when you're working alone or working with a small team, or you want to do like small POC and stuff like that. But like also like take care because AWS has a lot of they have a huge amount of services, so you can easily get lost because you don't know whether you should use like a Lambda, whether you should use EC2, and oh, what does ECS means? Is it different from EKS? Or
Yeah.
I don't get it. So yeah, AWS is a great choice, but like choose your services wisely. That's my advice. DigitalOcean also provide vouchers, but like less often these last months, I think, these last years, I think. But they are not that present in the industry, but they have some nice features and they have really good quality documentation. Linode and Skyway. So you guys might know Linode because they have a huge load of documentation like online for people who don't know much about ops things and cloud. And so it's really easy to get started with Linode. And Skyway is another nice like European based a cloud provider as well, and nice features, not too pricey, and quite a lot of documentation actually. So yeah, so just keep in mind that your skills, like overall, they shouldn't be about like one or two cloud providers. So you shouldn't be about like just AWS or just Azure. You have to apprehend and understand like the theoretical concepts and constantly keep in touch with the tech actuality. So Huzaifa's YouTube channel is a great media for TechWatch. You should also follow him on LinkedIn, and maybe later I can also like give a few other resources.
Sure. Because I like the Thomas point that you shouldn't stick to like one or two cloud providers, because I know a lot of people, they say, I'm expert in like AWS, for instance, because AWS has like more than 50-60% of the market share when it comes to cloud. But like you should understand the core principle, like what is containerization, what is the Lambda function means. Lambda mean like serverless deployments. What is like EKS, Kubernetes and stuff. So once you know the core concept, like if you go to AWS, you have serverless deployment. It is the
Yeah.
same in Azure as well. Like you have containerization in AWS, same in GCP, same in Azure, same in DigitalOcean. So you have to understand the concept, you have to understand different things. And the best thing like I would recommend people is that do some sort of certification, because I have seen like a lot of people, they are using a certain service, and when you ask them, why you're using, like for instance, containerization or EC2 or
Yeah,
like
they don't even
serverless,
know.
they
Yeah.
say, this is the only way to do it. Like you should know.
Yeah.
No, like in AWS, like for instance, you have Lightsail, then you have like Lambdas, which is like a serverless deployment of, for instance, a node application. Then you have EC2 simple deployment, and then you have ECS deployment. And like you should know like in which case I have to choose which option.
Yeah.
So for that, it is very important that you understand them theoretically rather than just understanding them
Yeah.
practically. So that is very important. So yeah.
Yeah, you have to have like cloud diagnostic knowledge, I would say.
So yeah, Thomas, what are the best resources to learn about DevOps?
So of course, like Huzaifa's YouTube channel is a good resource. Like that's a free shout out. Like to be honest, like not doing it for the money, but doing it for the sake of it. But you should also look for high-rated Udemy courses. So, for example, I went to an engineering school in France, but like most of my knowledge actually come from Udemy courses and
Yeah.
like my practice experience. So, and there is another great resources. Like if you want to dive into cloud and DevOps, it's called Code Cloud. So with K. So like KODEKLOUD. And this is an amazing platform to learn and practice DevOps tools without the hassle of having to set up your own environment. So what they do basically is that they provide, of course, like courses, like
Okay.
video courses and everything, and like assessments, but assessments happen like in a pre-made environment. So for example, if you're practicing Kubernetes, you don't have to set up like your own environment, your own Kubernetes environment on your machine. You can just like use use what they provide on the web. So it's a really great tool as well. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like a playground.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
saying.
playground. Yeah,
Oh,
it's an online playground. Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't checked that, but this sounds interesting because,
Yeah.
and Thomas' point is like very valid. I have also done like computer science in my bachelor's, but to be honest, like I haven't learned a word about DevOps in the university.
Yeah.
So like you can learn about like the coding practices, different languages, maybe like Python or JavaScript in your bachelor's or master's, but you cannot learn about like these cloud technologies. So it is recommended that you should buy like courses from Udemy, Coursera, or like I also use like this website awslearning.com. They have provided like a lot of free resources. All the knowledge I have regarding AWS, I have like 80 or 90% I have learned from awslearning.com. There are like different different courses on different topics. A course on like DynamoDB, a course on ECS containerization, a course on like serverless. So you can go there. It's like a free website. Most of these courses are free. You can just sign up and start learning from there.
Yeah.
So, what is the scope of DevOps in today's world? Because there are a lot of people, inclined towards the development market, and this industry is booming. So, what is the scope of DevOps in all of that?
So actually, like DevOps principles are really important nowadays because you shouldn't make your software to only work locally. Like you should also think about making it available to everyone. So whether you publish it on the web or on a public open source repository on GitHub, the time you spend automating releases, scan vulnerabilities, and trigger deployments will keep ensuring the quality of your software. So it's just not like today. Honestly, like you can make your software on like in your bedroom and do okay. This works on my computer. This is awesome. No, like you should make sure to have a dev environment which is close to your production one, and to have like isolated environments. Otherwise, you will just hit your head against like issues that have been solved by DevOps tools and DevOps principles like a few years ago. I mean, so yeah, you should jump into that. Like, doesn't matter like your background. If you have a ops background, if you have a dev background, you should like integrate these tools in your daily workflow, and you will see that it will save you a lot of time.
Yeah, like I would also add here that previously, like I don't know, like there are like few guys who just do the deployments on the Linux servers.
Yeah.
Some companies have in-house, servers, the whole server room. They have like a lot of, air conditions to like cool them down and stuff. And then like all of the sudden there are like, some automation in the deployment and stuff started, introduced in the market. And then there used to be like 2-3 guys. And now even in the back-end jobs or in the front-end job, like you will get questions related to the cloud. They will ask you that if you're interviewing for even like I would say a backend role, they will ask you, do you know about AWS? Do you know about like deployments? Do you know about like Kubernetes, or like do you know about Docker? Like it is not related to development, right?
So basically it's like oh, that's cool, to make a binary tree, but do you know how to deploy it now, and do you know how to monitor it? Because I think like these things are more important than knowing how to like code a binary tree. Like it's important to know how you will ship your app like seamlessly, and just monitor it and just make it scale, because this is like the real added value in a company. Like I mean not everyone, but like a lot of people can ship like a software one time, but can they do it twice? Can they do it both? Can they deploy it before to a staging platform and then do QA on it, and then like ship it to the production and monitor it and scan the vulnerabilities and so on and so on? These are like the real added values, like on the product lifecycle, to be honest. And on the tech side, on the technical side, of course.
And then I also think, because like it is because of DevOps that you have this auto scaling. You're not concerned about it. Previously, I know that people working 24/7. There are like guys working in like 3 shifts. They are concerned about the CPU usage. The CPU usage going up. We have to do something, increase the RAM of the server, or then you have like dedicated servers. You cannot increase the RAM, like simply increase the RAM. No. You have to migrate your setup to some other server, or you have to deploy your system to some other server, and then add some load balancer on top of it. All of that manually. But now you specify, auto scaling groups, you specify all of this using DevOps, different tools and softwares.
Mm-hmm.
If there's like a lot of traffic, you have run some marketing campaigns, you do not have to worry about or sit in front of your laptop seeing, okay, the traffic is going up, I have to do some changes in the infrastructure.
Just
it
like
will it will happen automatically. New resources will be attached to your servers, and then your whatever the traffic is, the people can use it normally. And then when the traffic is down, automatically the additional resources which are added by the cloud provider, it will be deleted, and then you're not even are paying for that. So you're only paying for what you are using from that particular cloud provider.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the best practices in CI/CD pipeline?
Okay, so basically, when you want to set up a CI/CD tool, you should first, in the first place, prior to that, you should think to the Git flow. So the Git flow is basically using branches, and each branches have some rules. So the most basic Git flow that you can have is the following: I have a main branch and a develop branch. Okay. So create feature branches from the develop branch, open pull request to merge. Feature branches to develop when you think that the development is done for this for the feature, and then later when you're ready to release a proper version of your project, open a pull request to merge develop to the main branch. And so the main branch will represent the current state of your project, and then you git tag the main branch. For example, if you want to release a 1.0.0, you tag 1.0.0 your main branch, and so you have fixed the state of the project at a defined version. So based on a nice Git flow with good standards, you can plug on your CI/CD. So the links, tests, vulnerability scars, and build tasks, they should run for all branches. Okay. So the success of these tasks or these tasks is required to merge a branch to develop. So for example, if you're building a new feature on the feature branch and then you open the pull request to develop, the CI/CD will be triggered and see, okay, lean step, okay, does your code have code smells, or is it written properly? Okay, does it passes unit tests? Okay, and what about the code coverage? Is the code coverage decreased by your recent developments? Okay, and so on and so on. Are you introducing new vulnerabilities or stuff like that? So then a merge on the develop branch can trigger an automated deployment to your staging or pre-production or QA platform. So this is important also to deploy in a platform which is not production, of course, because if you have last minute problem, your end customer won't be happy. You are always asked to think about that, just put the customer consent is in the center of your product lifecycle as well. This is and so you want then to deploy this to a staging platform and try maybe let the QA team do what they know, and then in the end when you merge the develop branch and the main branch, it should trigger an automated deployment to your production platform or maybe to your Artifactory. For example, if you want first to release artifacts and then use a different tool to deploy, provision these artifacts on a VM, on a Lambda, on a Kubernetes cluster, anything. And so also the last step for this last workflow is to do the Git tag. So the Git tag should be also automated. It should be part of this last step. So when you ship to production, okay, you Git tag. So, or maybe you can Git tag and then ship to production. So yeah.
Great. That is I would say a great workflow. I think we're also following the same workflow in the current company as well, because just a disclaimer, we both work in the same company.
So just one last thing maybe about the Git flow. What I described it, it's the most basic one, and of course your Git flow should fit all the rest of your company is expecting you to ship the products. So yeah, there are different ways, but you can start from this. If you actually you don't have any Git flow, you should start from this and then maybe adapt it a little bit, read how other people do. There are other Git flows as well. So yeah, but one thing which is essential that we haven't mentioned is that first you should think about how will my app be hosted? What service tool should I use to host it? and does this tool ensure dev, test, and prod ISO environments? And also there are a lot of concerns to answer before shipping, like deploying and thinking about all this. And of course, like the deployment tool that you will choose, like the tool that will be used to host your app, it will like everything in your CI/CD will be based on that, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, you're right. Because like it is like a whole pipeline. I will also, like I can share some of this pipeline thing that we have mentioned, this whole GitHub workflow. This is like the very basic one, as Thomas mentioned. I can share these docs somewhere. I will add a link in the description, so that for someone who is like interested in this workflow as well, you can check it out. And then you can have like different workflows. For instance, it is based on your organization need. I know some organization have like dev environment, staging environment, and production. Some have like just staging and production. So it is based on your needs, your organization structure. And so what are some of the monitoring tools that DevOps people used in the system?
Yeah, actually, we keep saying that it highly depends on the size and the skills of the team, but like also like on the company's culture and on the team's culture. So same answer for this, but like what you can use, very much able to. So the one which is the most known one is like the ELK suite, the ELK stack, sorry. It fits like medium to large teams. So it's basically like a stack of 3 tools, so Elastic, Logstash, and Kibana. And this is used like to collect like logs, and you can have dashboards then and like generate insights and stuff like this. There is also like Datadog, which is easy to implement, and it fits teams that do not want to patch too much time on this kind of matters. When I say this kind of matter, is like setting up logging and APM and monitoring. So Datadog is really nice, and yeah, it fits like teams which are mostly focused on dev and don't have much time to like set up an ELK stack, for example. For insight related to machine usage, so for example, like memory consumption, CPU usage, disk usage, the IO, networking IO, and everything, you can use Prometheus. You can have a look at that. But of course, like if you don't have time to set up these tools, because these tools are mostly cloud agnostic, I would say. So you can also use the services provided by choosing cloud providers. So for example, if you're using AWS, you can use CloudWatch. CloudWatch like apps like you can have logs in CloudWatch, you can have metrics in CloudWatch, you can build dashboards with CloudWatch. So this is a nice tool. So for example, if you don't have much time, yeah, you should definitely use the services provided by the chosen cloud provider. So you have also this kind of services on Azure and on GCP, of course, because as we told you, like it's good to have this theoretical knowledge, because this cloud understanding knowledge, because you will find like the same services in all cloud providers at different costs, with different strategy and different features, but mostly like the idea is the same, is monitoring. Like,
yeah. And I would say like monitoring is very important. Like you have to understand like why companies work a lot of time, and spend a lot of time for these monitoring tools, because there can be a case, some of the customer who is using your platform from a faraway country, and that person is facing some issue, right? So how you get to know that particular person is facing some issue? Maybe like it can be a case like in your region there is no issue in the platform, but for a person using your platform from for instance, India or Pakistan is facing some issue, but people who are using the platform from Kuala Lumpur or like Singapore, they're not facing an issue. So using these monitoring tools, you get to know, okay, what is the page load time from this country? What is the page load time from this country? What is the performance metrics? What is, the server capacity and the server usage? So you get to know like a lot of things, So that's why these tools are very important. Like as Thomas mentioned about the ELK suite, like it is like a very detailed, they have like a lot of things. And I would say it is like one of the industry best.
It's like it's like one of the industry best. Of course, not everyone is happy with it, because like it's not that easy to maintain and all. And of course, like it's an added value, but it's also an added like responsibility like to maintain, because it's just another tool that you deploy and that you have to update, that you have to apply security patches. So yeah,
Yeah, you're right. And then I would say in the end that if you're looking for something, very simple, then I would say Sentry is also a good tool, because a Sentry is like very easy. Like I think like with it using just like adding 3 or 4 lines, you can integrate Sentry in your
Yeah.
backend repository or front end. And then Sentry also included the performance metrics, the error reporting, the unhandled errors and stuff like that. It is not as powerful as like these other tools, like but it is also a very good tool, I would say.
Yeah,
Like,
because APM is definitely like an important matter as well. You can do APM with Datadog, you can do APM with Elastic.co as well. And these are great tools. And yeah, keep in mind that monitoring and collecting logs might seem in the first place, like it might seem like a secondary thing, like not that important matter, but actually like, how do you want to scale and improve your product if you don't know how it works in production? Like
yeah,
it's essential. It's central actually. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. And what is your thought on security aspect
Yeah.
in DevOps? Because in DevOps we are building the code, we have some sensitive
Mm,
keys, right? Maybe some billing key of Stripe, and then there is some key of like
mm,
AWS secret key and stuff like that. So how do you make sure that your whole DevOps
yeah.
cycle and everything is secure, and the data that we have, like maybe
Mm,
in the application that we are building, it is handling some personal
yeah.
information or banking information, stuff like that. So what
Yeah.
is the process to make sure your software is GDPR compliant, or you can say like it is very secure?
Yeah. So I think that the first like matter in terms of security is secrets. But
Yeah,
yeah, like we have always like managed that intern who was like writing secrets in who was hard coding secrets. So
yeah,
basically, so yeah. So first thing like, it might seem obvious to certain people, but not so much to other people, and it's okay. Like we just all learning, just all of us like going through a journey as well. So your secrets shouldn't be hard coded in your code. It should always be like injected through parameters, like preferably environment variables. And if you can use secrets manager, so secrets manager are provided by most of the cloud providers. I mean, all of them actually. And so secrets manager are just all a big vault for your secrets, and you just from your code you just interface with it using the SDK. So for example, in your code, instead of expecting like a secret from a config file or from an environment variable, you will just make a call to that vault by using the SDK. So behind the curtains, it's like an API call, and so then you ensure that your secrets are stored and like within a tool with like which ensures like industry grade best practices and standards. So yeah, that's pretty it. And also like regarding security, of course, like integrating with cicd vulnerability scans of your dependencies, and like yeah, code smells also like some tools are allowed to do that really great, like Black Duck. And of course, security is also an important matter outside of dev. It's also an important matter on the ops side. So you should like make sure that you give like the less permission possible to a cloud resources. Like just give it the permission it requires at its bare minimum. And also doing like audit log is really important. Like you should log, for example, if you know that there are some stuff in your DB which is sensitive, you should log all access to it, and maybe also build automation based on these logs. So for example, if a log audit reveals that a user who is not supposed to have access to certain data somehow got access to certain
yeah,
data, yeah, you should take actions. Like so, it's both on the dev side and both on the ops side. Sorry, and so that's why people try to fit the sec word between dev and ops and do the DevSecOps. So
yeah,
because like for the whole pipeline, for the whole like project lifecycle, you should never forget about like security. Like a lot of business or small businesses, like they forget about security because they're like, yeah, we don't have time and money. But like when they got to the data breach, they're like, okay, yeah, we should have spent time on that. So yeah, try to follow like the standard, like the minimum things at least, and it will be better than nothing, and we save you a lot of time and money. Yeah.
Yeah, that is right. That is right. Because, like there are like a lot of things, as Thomas mentioned, first of all, you have to secure your secret, then, code vulnerability scan, and then the least privilege, least access. Like, it is not like, you give like admin access of everything. You have to see like, if you need like just the read access, you provide the read access to that particular resource. And then there are like a lot of things like encryption in between, like if you're saving some sensitive data, you have to make sure that it is encrypted, and the network communication is done on SSL. And then you have like different solutions, for instance, like to prevent man in the middle attack, you like you have to make sure that you are also preventing that. For that, you use SSL pinning. That's also a concept like a lot of people I have seen in the different products, like very big products, and they are not preventing that man in the middle attack, and they do not have any SSL pinning in place. So basically, like just to give you a quick idea of what SSL pinning is, like the man in the middle attack is performed in a way that this is our backend application and this is the front end. So that these hackers, they create like a proxy server, and then the proxy server communicates to the backend and tells the backend that I am the front end, and then it communicates with the front end and tell the front end that I am the backend. So then all the communication is going through that proxy. So if a person is adding their bank details or their password sensitive data, so that proxy server can log all of that and can misuse that. To you can say, like, to prevent that, what you have to do is, once the backend application get the request from front end, you have to check the request SSL, like the URL, like you are getting the request from the front end, you get the like request details, like who is sending the request, and then you have to get the SSL details, check the hash of it, and compare that with the internal hash you have already calculated, match that. Similarly on the front end as well. In that way, like if there is like a proxy in between, that proxy SSL hash code won't match the hash code that you have already saved. So there are like a lot of things on that, like we can like even make like multiple videos on that, but like you have to make sure that you also emphasize on security. Like it is the power of, like, I would say, DevOps, or like this development and all that. It's not like just the security guys work.
Yeah, and so like if you don't know where to start for this, just look it up on Google and see what other companies are doing. What are the best practices? What are the best practices for HTTPS? How do you renew certificates? What cloud services can do it for you if you don't want to do it? And so yeah, just look up the best practice. Like it will take you 10 minutes of your time and like maybe save a ton of money.
And I think like on AWS as well, like on these cloud providers, they also provide like a lot of services. Like I have seen like a few services, like they say, it is like it uses machine learning and like some sort of AI you attach with your services, like ECS or EC2 services, and it will check like if there is like any threat, anomaly, or stuff, or if there are like some security issues. Like these services automatically doing these work for you. They can get to know, okay, there's some sort of problem. So it is worth a while to check those services. Like if it is easy to configure them with your existing workflow, you can just spend a day or two and configure that with your existing workflow. So as Thomas, the DevOps field is continuously evolving, and then there are like new tools and technology every day in the market coming up. So how do you stay up to date and so how do you stay up to date and build these amazing like CI/CD pipelines?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we all want CI/CD in our lives, right? So one of the first resource I would recommend for that is Huzaifa's YouTube channel and LinkedIn.
Thanks, man. Like
yeah, of course. And like as also said, like Udemy courses, like with great grades. And if you're like not English, you're not from an English speaking country, or like English is not your first language, but please just always pick like English Udemy courses. Like for example, like French people don't pick French Udemy courses, please. Great French people do very great Udemy courses in English anyway. So yeah, you can also like sign up for newsletter. So I really like that approach because for example, like in my daily life, I don't have much more time to do the tech watch. So I subscribe to this newsletter called TLDR. So Too Long Didn't Read. And each day they give me like a few articles about the tech actuality and a few GitHub repos, like a few open source projects to follow on GitHub. So this is really great. And yeah, I think you should subscribe to this. Of course, there are some great major articles, but don't go too deep into this, and don't take them too seriously, because most of them are bullshit. So yeah, just have a look, like a maybe privileged articles from senior solution architects talking about architecture patterns, but not about like the guy saying, "Oh, there is this new tech. I will rewrite all my company's apps in this new tech." So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. And then like you have to the point that you mentioned about like the newsletter.
Yeah.
I also like the strategy, because like you subscribe to a newsletter, and then there's like an email that you get, like there's like few like 5-minute read, I would
Yeah.
say. Like you just read it, and then you get to know about like some amazing
Yeah.
tool, or there's like an update in the existing I would say tool that you use. You get to know, okay, like these are the 2-3 new features that are added.
Yeah.
And like it takes like few minutes. You even do not have to go on the web and search for it. So
Yeah.
it is good that find some of the good platforms where you can get good content. As Thomas mentioned, TLDR newsletter is like a good resource, so you can just subscribe there as well. So, Thomas, what advice you would give to someone who is starting their career in DevOps, and so that they can build a strong foundation from the start?
Yeah, I think that's what's important in DevOps, like prior to anything we said, is you must have some developer experience prior to that. So any language, any runtime can do, like Python, Node.js, Go, Java, whatever. But you must know how to build an app, actually, like, and how it works, like, and know also like the best practices in terms of coding and in software architecture. Then you can choose a low-cost cloud provider and try to deploy your application with it only by using automations. Like, just like ship it to the cloud only using automations, like integrated in the CICD. And from there, you get a better understanding of all the problematics which are around, like, the app deployments. So then from there, like, you will have your first try and will be like, okay, there are a lot of things I need to tackle before applying for DevOps engineer jobs. And you will start to build your theoretical expertise and knowledge first. So get to know about architecture patterns. So I'm talking about system architecture and solution architecture patterns, and the good practices that come with it. Build some expertise with one tool per domain, depending on the stack you wish to use. So, for example, you should, as you say, you should have like developer experience, like regarding popular programming language and runtime. Of course, you should know about, like, you should have system knowledge, like regarding like Linux, networking, VMs, containers. Some containers are not just Docker. Like, it's a really hot thing, and some company made use of it to bring it like to the actual world. But yeah, and you should know about like just a little bit of shell scripting, bash scripting. You should also know how to package an app, so using Docker or other container solution for which are OCI compliant, or Open Container Initiative. These are standards that define what is a container and how it should work. You should, for example, if you're working on Python application, you should know how to package your application with pip. If you're working on Node application, how to package with npm. For CI/CD, get to know about GitLab, Jenkins, GitHub Actions, stuff like this. Great popular tools. Monitoring, we talked about Datadog, we talked about ELK, so it's a great to have a look at these two. For infrastructure provisioning, for now, like, the current standard is Terraform, but get to know also how this field evolves, because the IAC, so infrastructure as code and infrastructure provisioning, it really evolves like a lot. So there are always like new tools or supersets of existing tools or forks. Okay. And also, like, regarding configuration provisioning, you should use Ansible. This is the best tool for configuration provisioning, but also it depends on your deployment strategy. For app deployments, get to know about different cloud services, so, and different like cloud agnostic knowledge as well. So we talked about serverless, we talked about VM, we talked about containers. You should get to know also a little bit about Kubernetes, even though not all companies use that. But just get to know about it because it's a nice tool. And of course, over tools that come with the Kubernetes ecosystem. So Helm, Argo CD. So yes, that's a lot of things, but keep in mind that choosing you have to, at the end of the day, you have to choose a DevOps cloud stack, just like choosing a development stack. So you
Yeah.
can't know about everything. It's your approach, your expertise. So, example, if you want to focus on containers and Kubernetes, you will
Yeah.
focus on container and Kubernetes. Like, don't try to get to know about everything, but just maybe get a glimpse of different things, so you know the
Got
perks
it.
of everything. And most important is theoretical knowledge, like how
Yeah.
do you ship, like what are the current best practices for shipping and like building, packaging an application. This is like the most important, and then you can choose the tools. Yeah.
Got it, got it. So yeah, that is very important. That, like as Thomas mentioned, that in the start you have to have some knowledge of the back end, or I would say some knowledge of the front end as well, and then you have knowledge about the Linux servers and stuff. Then you dive deep into the all the DevOps tool regarding monitoring, regarding building the code, regarding code compliance, and code coverage scans and stuff. Because if you do not know about the backend thing, or like how to package your app, for instance, like as Thomas mentioned about the pip, npm, or yarn, like you should know about that. Like if you only have like theoretical knowledge or the practical knowledge of DevOps, and you do not have knowledge about the other languages, like for
Mhm.
instance JavaScript, Python, or Go, then it is like very difficult. Maybe you do not understand what developers are saying to you. So it is important that you
Mhm.
have like some basic knowledge of it. And I've seen like a lot of people like in who are working as a cloud engineer or as a DevOps. They are like, they started their career as a backend engineer or as a full stack engineer, or they have like worked on like one or two projects as a full stack engineer, then they
Mhm.
shifted towards as a DevOps. There
Yeah.
are like very rare cases like where people actually start
Yeah.
from DevOps.
DevOps, though. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, Thomas, like, how do you approach building, scalable and resilient solutions?
Mm.
So, what is the approach for that?
So first, it depends on the team size, the team culture, and the budget. So these are like three things which always come back, like whenever you want to make a decision regarding ops, DevOps, how to deploy things. So yeah, keep this in mind, whatever decision you make. So the first thing to ensure when building an infrastructure is that things shouldn't be done manually. So for example, if you're using AWS, you don't want to go through the console like click, click, click to create a VM. Like that's not the way you should do it. An infrastructure should be built with a descriptive approach. You should be able to destroy and deploy this infrastructure again and again in different contexts. So you should be able to use the same description to bring up a staging platform, to bring up a dev platform, to bring up a QA platform. Doesn't matter. Like it should be descriptive. You should be able to bring it up and to bring it down
Okay.
as many times as possible. So the infrastructure provisioning should be as automated as possible using these descriptive tools. So the app deployment strategy must be cautiously studied also. So what tools are you using to package your apps? What tools are you using to deploy these apps? So are you using, for example, Docker and Kubernetes? Are you using Docker and AWS ECS? Are you using Docker and AWS Lambda? Are you not using Docker at all? Are you using like NPM? I don't know. Like you must answer this question before. Um, like you also have to answer the question, like, is it a multi-tenant architecture, or do each customer have their own apps with their own configuration? So
Yeah.
you also like what greatly impacts like the thing like to build a resilient infrastructure is about like what is your current like global infrastructure architecture like for your app. Is it microservices, monolithic? Okay. And so now after all this we can answer the question. So first you have to pick an app orchestration approach that integrates well with your CI/CD and release workflow. So do you want to do like continuous deployment, or just push artifact like releases like zips, or like for example Docker images to an Active Factory and use another tool to deploy them? So you also got to wonder like what is your current global architecture? Is it like microservices? Is it monolithic? So this plays an important part in the decision. So now to answer your question, so you've got to pick an app orchestration approach that integrates well with your CI/CD and releases workflow. So everything about packaging, versioning. So do you do like continuous deployment, or do you package your app, publish it to an Artifactory, then use a different tool to provision these releases to the current infrastructure. So this way, like once this is decided, like you'll be able to deliver hotfixes in no time, and you'll be able to automate most of the work. So this is really a central point. This is really like core. So if you're going with a cloud native architecture, pick the services that match your workloads the best, and that you will be able to also able to reproduce easily locally. So you have a nicer development environment. So you can choose between serverless, container-based services, or VMs. If you have a service-oriented architecture or even microservices architecture, you can choose different cloud services for each of these services. Like choose the one that fits the best, depending of what your service is trying to achieve. So also like pay close attention to the pricing in order to take your decision. So usually, this is really an important matter. Usually, so services. So they serve well use cases where you want to serve a well-defined use case of a feature. So, for example, like just code to create a user, okay? Or just send a message, okay? And with serverless services, you have a pay-as-you-go billing. So, meaning that you bill for the time your function is being executed and the resources it consumes at this time. Okay. So VMs then, like virtual machines, are well suited for heavy workload, which are producing output on their own on a large time frame. Okay, so if you're running like calculation on a long time frame, so but keep in mind that you have to maintain these virtual machines and duplicate them in order to ensure availability and all this occur costs, of course. So container-based services are nice for use case that fits in between the two previously mentioned. Okay, so it's also easy to have approaching local environments, and you don't have to maintain VMs, except if you use Kubernetes managed service with certain cloud providers. But yeah, so to sum it up, like you can go with container-based services or serverless, and if you have like every workload, like producing outputs on a big time frame, go for VM. So most of the time, in fact, like the most part of the bill will be related to the DB. So this is like a critical choice, because this is like the main bottleneck in every system. This and network are the two main bottlenecks in every system. So depending on your team size, expertise, for example, if you have a DBA, you can go with more complex database based on this guy expertise. This guy or girl expertise, by the way. But if you're like, your team doesn't have like a good experience like with DBs, and if you can't afford a DBA, you can also pick a managed DB service. So for example, for AWS, you can go for AWS Document DB, you can go for AWS DynamoDB. But even with these systems, like be sure to study and fine tune the parameters to fit like your workload, your current workload nature. So handle, for example, like pick the appropriate configuration to handle, the spikes, the writing spikes in the GPU or the reading spikes, and also like configure indexes, of course. So also like on the other compute resources, enable auto-scaling strategies whenever this is needed. So you can do auto-scaling based on metrics. So for example, like CPU usage or incoming requests. And you can also do like scaling based on schedules. So for example, if you have a staging platform, and that you want it to occur less costs on weekend, you can use schedule scaling to put it back to sleep on weekends and put it back on at the beginning of the week. So this is also a nice way to save money, build a resilient architecture, and do things like with best practices in an industry grade environment.
Just to add here, the last thing that Thomas mentioned, this is like a very interesting thing, because Thomas actually did that in the existing project like we are working on in Respond.io. So that because our staging platform, it is not used on like Saturday and Sunday. So there is no point paying for the ECS, all of these services, SQS and all of that on Saturday and Sunday. So Thomas created a project. It is named as like ECS off hours
optimizer.
Optimizer,
something like that.
So what it does is like it basically stops some of the services, I think not all. you can like tell more
Most of
detail
them.
about.
Most
Yeah,
of them. Yeah.
most of them are
Yeah.
stopped, and then like I think then in the morning before the office start, like 1 or 2 hour before, all of the services start again. So if you
Mm.
visit the staging platform in between the, like, at night, you will see it is off. But there's an amazing, I would say, thing that is added as well.
Mm.
From Slack there is an automation. For instance, as a QA, you need to test something at night, maybe like you're working till 10 or 11 at night. There's a Slack automation. You just type the Slack command, send the message. It will automatically start the server front and back end again, and you can start using it, and it will start it again for like, I think, 2 hours, and
Yeah.
again after 2 hours it will
Yeah. Yeah.
stop. So this is like crazy. This is like, I would say, a great project for cost saving as well.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
this is only possible because everything is set up using, as you mentioned, like descriptive
Yeah.
language, like using cloud formation, using Terraform.
Yeah.
If we have the whole infrastructure set up just by manually going to AWS and creating resources,
Click.
so then it is not possible, like,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
turning things down and turning things up.
Mm.
So it's not possible, because I remember like previously I also used to set up, like, work on AWS, create few services, just go to AWS, create some resources, attach it with other resources. But like, it is very difficult to mimic the same
Mm.
settings again for the
Yeah.
production,
Yeah.
again for the staging. So if you have, like, you're using like cloud formation, Terraform, then it is very easy. You can use that, and use those files to upload your project on some other
Mm.
account as well. You are
Yeah.
not restricted with that particular account.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
this is the main thing, and you can turn that infrastructure down in like one click. You
Mm.
can turn it up.
Mm.
So this is like crazy. So yeah.
Mm.
So, lastly, Thomas, like, I want to ask you, what
Mm.
is your prediction, and what is your analysis regarding DevOps? Like, how do you see the future of it, and what is the role of AI in it? Because now, like, AI is involved in almost everything nowadays.
Mm.
So, what do you think?
Yeah. So of course, like AI helps a lot in like coding. Of course, like a lot of people are using it. It also helps a lot in generating file for IAC tools. So for example, you can generate like a Terraform template, sorry, or Ansible playbooks. But like keep like be cautious, because sometimes it's not really accurate. Like most of the time, it's not accurate, and it can make you lose time. So personally, I don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
I've been losing too much time with this. And yeah, so what I'm the most excited about, like regarding this AI bubble we're living it right now, is ML ops. So ML ops is machine learning ops, and it's the expertise of maintaining and bringing at scale AI based applications. So this is really an interesting thing, because like all these people are developing models. Like you have different models like LLMs, and over like build like like neural based system and everything. So this is great, but like maintaining this, like making sure they are constantly fed with data, with high quality data actually, and like most constantly fed with this high quality data, and they are able to answer like each user request. It's also like a great challenge, and this is where ML ops comes. So yeah, I'm really excited about like the new path that is taking like DevOps with machine learning and AI. So yeah, it's definitely a subject that you should have a look at. Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. That is great, because I am also interested in ML ops, and then there are like, I would say, like, right now, AI, like Chat GPT or some other APIs platforms,
Mm.
they are still developing. They are not like mature enough so that you can use them in your
Mm.
production environment and stuff like that, because they have like outdated data, and now it is
Mm.
like, I would say, like, inception of a lot of these platforms. A lot of them are like
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
better day by day. I've also
Mm.
experienced this, and I can tell that a lot of you guys have experienced this as well. Like, some of like basic stuff and very simple, AI will answer with great confidence. But like some of the complex scenarios and stuff, like, it is very difficult to get the right answer from AI. So it is you should use them with cautious, and you should know what you are doing,
Mm.
rather than just giving a command to Chat GPT and
Yeah,
using
yeah.
that code in
because
your
you will
application.
lose a lot of time doing that, like, because you're like, yeah, I'm sure like that the AI is telling me the good thing, but like when you dive into the docs, you're like, okay, no.
This is
He
this,
tried to make up something to make me happy, but like
yeah,
it's not the actual
yeah.
solution. So yeah.
A lot of time, yeah, it also tells sometimes like outdated information as well, so you have to
Hmm.
make sure you also use your mind and study the doc as well. So yeah, I think that brings us to end of this exciting episode. In this episode we discuss about the DevOps roadmap, what are the different tools and technologies that you should learn if
Hmm.
you want to be a DevOps engineer. And we are, so grateful that Thomas joined us physically, and then we had this, great talk with him.
Yeah, I traveled from France for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
man.
I didn't. Yeah, but
So
thank you for having me, Josepha. It was my pleasure, and yeah, really a great time. Really a
yeah,
great time. Yeah.
it